I think I could answer that less. Okay. I need to do a lot more research on that, on what the actual renter versus homeowner is. But it's right. Once you get more renters, you start to flip. And I'll just kind of conclude the last question by saying, we found that out because we had precinct information. We don't have it this time. We don't know if people from closed precincts are delegates this time. So that's the problem here.
Thank you. All right, another audience question. This gentleman over here. There you go, sir. Hold it close.
I will try.
All right.
Mr. Shepard, my name is Ed Forrest, and I think part of the problem with the election was that the Democrats were incredibly organized. They created an amalgam that took Tim Lee out and brought Michael Boyce in. What do you intend to do? There were Democrats involved also. What do you intend to do to reach out to those sectors? The homeless, the people who are living in poverty and need transportation. That's the amalgam that I think that we also need to look at.
The Democrats had a great program. Jason Carter started it. It's called Democrats Work. It's a community-based program that goes out and they look at, they help people with those issues. They do community service. They do it with the name of the Democrat Party on it. I tried to start an organization in 2008. The problem was the Republican Party was probably as a brand at its lowest point that it possibly could be. But I called it Republican Hands. Joe Dindy expressed to me that he wanted to do something like that. I turned over all my materials to him. I had lots of printed materials, people donated money. I don't know whoever came up with it. I don't think he did anything. But something that's close and dear to my heart is community service. One thing that we're doing in our campaign is we've been raising money. And part of what we're raising money for is if any member needs babysitting the day of the convention, we don't want that to be a burden on them. So we're supplementing to, and we partnered with Riverstone Church, Stonebridge Church to provide that. So it's definitely something in my mind.
Okay, time. All right, another question from the audience. Okay, here we go.
My question, it kind of dovetails exactly on what you just mentioned. We have our young Republican group. They go up to the age of 40. Then we have a lot of other organizations, and they meet during the workday when all of us working professionals are at work. Or we have small children that we just can't lug around with us everywhere. What plans do you have to help pull in working professionals and families with young children so that they feel included?
And that's been one of my biggest concerns. I'm a father, I have 2 young children, I have a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old. So this is very close to my heart. And I want my children to experience the Republican Party and experience the principles that make this party great. And so I believe we need much more friendly events. Also, we need to grow our TARS, our Teenage Republican Network. We need to grow our College Republican Network. There's more than Kennesaw State in this county. There's Life, there's Chattahoochee Tech. There should be College Republican chapters there. So then, once you start getting the people involved, a 60 or 70-year-old TAR wants to make a little extra money and can babysit a few kids while the parents go door to door. And we provide a safe atmosphere for that. People who are credentialed, who've had classes, who are experienced, then we can have more family focus. And maybe also more just general family focused activity. Heck, we'll invite the Democrats to a softball game. What's more family friendly than a softball game? That'd be great for the young Republicans, college Republicans, and not tired old people like me who run out their knees.
Thanks.
But then you'd have to get a participation trophy.
No, we don't do those anymore.
Okay, so one thing that I guess Rose's absence maybe underscores is the question with regard to your health as a candidate. if you're elected, Jason, would you be able to serve a full term, and is there any reason, anything we should know about your health right now?
I just went to the doctor today and basically got a decent bill of health. I say decent because a little bit of pre-hypertension. They said to watch it. And I have a bad knee because I used to play catcher. And that's about it.
Any other questions from the audience? Michael Altman.
Thank you. I was an officer many, many years ago in the Cobb County Republican Party First Vice Chair. And we raised more money in that term than I think any other party preceding us, or probably after that. We would raise about $125,000, $130,000 a year. Prior to that, it was like $25,000 a year. One of the reasons we did that, we just asked for money and we got it. And we also created a business networking group. One of the ideas I was talking to you about is the fact that there's a lot of Republican business owners, and when we go to places to do business, we may be giving our money to Democrat business owners, right? And it'd be nice to have a directory and maybe some discounts, and so that we as Republicans can do business with Republicans. And so that would be a great way to raise money for the party. You could charge a higher membership fee for those networking groups, but also put out a discount directory book so it helps us Republicans save money and honor those business owners that really support our cause. So that's something that I would encourage you to do, and the question is, will you do that?
Yeah, I agree with you, Michael. We've seen a great decrease in the amount of fundraising we've had. In fact, looking at the balance sheet, everyone knows it costs $10 to go to a breakfast. That keeps families away. Well, how much money does that bring in? According to our balance sheet prepared by Vince Clanton, our treasurer, we bring in $7,000, but the meal itself costs us $4,000. That means we net $3,000 a year, not a month, a year. And by doing that, we keep families away. I bring my kids, they're charged $10 too.
Oh, that's crazy.
And so we need to find a better way of doing it.
Yeah.
In the 2 weeks since I announced, I've raised $4,000 for this campaign by asking. I've raised more money in 2 weeks than they did all year for breakfast, charging $10.
Crazy.
And by simply asking. By the way, Michael, how much are you going to write a check to? We used to do the directory. We used to do a calendar. Directory showed what businesses were Republicans and which supported us. We brought in money doing it. We had events that weren't $5 and $10 events. We got to stop nickel and diming our members.
That's very
Okay,
good.
here's another question that was submitted. Last year, a Republican official representing a large portion of Cobb County was discovered to have been publicly donating financial support to Democrats running for election around the state, even in places such as Cobb County. Some of these Democrats later ran against Republicans and also gave money from their campaigns to the Hillary Clinton presidential campaign, to the candidates. Do you believe it is appropriate for Republican officials to give funds or any type of support for resources to Democrats in an election? I heard that Rose Wing and those in her administration voted to excuse this activity on the part of this elected official, this Republican official. Would you feel comfortable giving such support yourself to Democrats if you were elected as a Republican county chair? And would you be willing to excuse any other Republican official who you discovered was publicly supporting the primary opposition of the Republican Party financially like this? Please explain your answer. And you are allowed 3 minutes to answer.
Hopefully this one won't take 3 minutes. The answer is no. The answer is emphatically no.
Absolutely.
And the reason is, I've seen time and time again Republican candidates in hard-fought elections be buried by donations from Democrats who were in safe districts. Now, to be sure, we do the same thing to them. But when you give money to a Democrat in a safe district who will never have a Republican opponent, that money is still used to go after Republicans. You think that money doesn't travel? When I was on the Rules Committee for the Georgia Republican Party, this was exactly the kind of thing we talked about, and exactly the kind of thing that we didn't think we had to write in there because it was so obvious. So obvious. So no, emphatically no, and hell no. We finished that in good time. Finished that in about 45 seconds. That's great. All right.
Charlie Williams.
Charlie.
Hey, I'm Charlie Williams, and the question that I've got is it keeps dodging. When I saw the map of how the votes came in, South Cobb was the one that was vacant. What are we going to do about that? Now, I want to add something else. Something that come up about committing to getting volunteers and what have you. I was in a meeting at lunch today with 21 people. Guess who got asked to volunteer? By me. And we're gonna get some volunteers. It may not be but one or two, but we're gonna get some.
Great. So to clarify the question again, what about South Cobb? We might also ask, what about Kennesaw State University, that area? And then what about volunteers?
Well, they all go together. They're all about volunteering. They're all about, if you give someone in South Cobb a list, well, first off, let's say we had a lot of unorganized precincts in South Cobb. Doesn't mean there are 0 Republicans in South Cobb. We pull up the voter list. We find the one Republican. We ask them, can you help? You know, a lot of times when you're surrounded, sometimes you want to do something about it, and it just takes that ask. We go to GOP Data Center, which is the new name for what used to be Bowler Vault, and get that information. That's what our House District chairs are for. So they organize the precincts. We help them find someone, then we give them the support they need. If they do need training, we give them training. I've trained thousands of grassroots activists. I was the Southeastern Regional Chair for the College Republican National Committee in the late 90s, and I visited over 40 college campuses, training over 400 college Republicans on how to get out the vote with basically no money. I have the experience, I have the training, and I have the ability to pass it on. So Charlie, we will get people out there, we'll get people on the campus, and we'll get them going door to door until we find more people, because there are Republicans down there. And it doesn't matter the color of their skin.
Right.
I have a statement.
Okay. Okay. We get the mic to you.
I just want to say that during the campaign, I was the co-chair for East Cobb, and I reached out to the young Republicans because I had one millennial that came to all the meetings. He was the one millennial. So we became, bonded. We reached out. I emailed. I've emailed. September was my last email. I just got an email back at the end of January saying, was that you? I said, sorry for the delay. And I was like, the election's over.
Oh my God.
And I was like, this is the problem. It's really not, the problem is communication. That's what I see. There's no communication. I mean, September, my last one, with all the whole time, September, my last one, and I'm sure you're busy.
I just took over.
And, okay. Sorry for the delay. 2 months after the nomination. So we did nothing with the millennials.
What's your question?
This is a statement. I'm saying it's not a question. It's a problem.
So, the question would be, what do we do about the millennials, I suppose?
No, not the millennials. The communication, and that's just one story. I won't go into all of them. You don't get phone calls back. You don't get emails back, and that's with the Republican Party also. That's across the board.
Right.
Will you change that?
Can you change that?
Oh yeah, I have a 24-hour policy on return, phone calls, emails, everything else, if I can't do it instantly. It's communication, you can't wait. Of course, I'm sitting here still waiting to find out what we need to do about decorating the night before the convention, because Joe Dindy conveniently forgot to tell me that part 2 years ago, so we didn't have anything, and we're not allowed anything in the convention hall 2 years ago. But yeah, communication is always a problem. But it's the most important thing we have, because that's part of communicating our message. You can say we make phone calls, but what message are you communicating? The state chair of the Young Republicans, Rob Lee, told the Marion Daily Journal that Trump's a fascist. He's quoted in there, December 12, 2015, "Oh my God, he's a fascist." That's his quote. He was a never Trumper. I don't know what he did to eventually help Trump win,
He did nothing.
And that's the answer. And he's now House District Chair as well.
Time. Okay.
Yes, Jason. We have a lot of people down at the Capitol who have R's behind their names who are not Republicans.
Amen.
Are you willing, at least in Cobb County, to require all candidates to not only put up their money, but sign an oath that they will follow Republican principles?
They actually, the sad thing is they already do. When you go down to qualify for a state house or any state office, you have to sign that oath. That oath's actually in state law. It's the same oath that we sign in mass precinct meetings. The question is, right, do they follow it? And the problem is always finding candidates willing to run against someone with $100,000 sitting in the bank.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Just a moment. We have another question submitted. So this one concerns former Chairman Joe Dendy, who was already brought up earlier. Rose, of course, it says here, Rose formerly served under Chairman Joe Dendy, and he is currently being tried for allegations about child molestation, and reportedly, according to the newspaper, has been reported to have admitted to being a fugitive of the law while he was serving as Cobb GOP chair. What is your position on the trial, and should we allow Joe Dendy to continue to serve in an honorary position on the Cobb County GOP committee?
No.
I think everyone answered my question. Back in the summer, I approached Rose Wing about this. One of the first things the state party did when Joe Dendy was arrested is they said, he's no longer here, they fired him. Our problem is a little bit more complicated. He has rights as a member of this organization. That means a committee has to be formed. It needs to investigate and decide if Joe Dendy should or should not be a member, report back, and then by a 2/3 vote, the county committee makes a decision. I decided that during the election, Joe Dendy was in jail. I acquiesced to Rose in this, that we would not do anything right now. Our first meeting back in December, I stood up to make a motion just to form the committee to investigate. Justin Tomczak made a motion to table it. A motion to table is not debatable. A motion to table also just moves something from one part of a meeting to another. If you want to move it from one meeting to another, it is debatable, and Rose shut that down.
All right, time. All right, next question there. Sing the song.
Jason, if you were elected to be the Cobb County Republican chair, representing Republicans in Cobb County, do you understand what rhino means? How would you have responded if you were chair and our governor chose not to attend the governor's meeting that Trump had called, representing the Republicans of this state at that level? Would you have expressed deep anger and disgust as a representative of Cobb County to the governor's office at his lack of participation at that level?
Okay, so can you do that in a minute?
I can do it in a minute. My understanding is the governor is not a member because the dues are $300,000 a year. Therefore, he was not invited. I have to take that as word because I've been focused on other things. But that was the excuse he gave. That he does not belong to the association because it's too expensive. And $300,000 a year in dues is pretty expensive. I know Chris Carr, our Attorney General, was up there just recently. I'm sure the governor has and will have other meetings with Donald Trump. But if it's a legitimate reason, then as a fiscal conservative, I agree with him not spending $300,000. And I don't know if that's going to be taxpayer money or campaign money on something like that. If it was another reason, then yes, I would. So.
Great. Okay, finish that. Less than, yeah, good. All right, next question. Yes, ma'am. We could try to keep our questions to 10 seconds or less, folks, okay? Please.
I don't know how many of you were at the mass precinct meeting, but it was very disorganized, very confusing. There were people who got frustrated and walked out and did not become delegates. I'd like to know how you saw that and how you could streamline it and what you see in the future to get more people involved so they don't get up and walk out.
It's a great question. And the mass precinct meetings over the last few years have gone a lot more unorganized. I remember when we would get out by 11:30. We're a large county, but we shouldn't be so large that the chairman of another county does their mass precinct meetings, closes it, get in a car, drive an hour to Cobb, and still can attend ours. We need an agenda. We need the agenda up there for everyone to have. We need to follow the agenda. We have 3 items of business to do that should not take 4 hours because we're not making everyone stand in line one another and come up. A little bit of organization goes a long way.
Good job. Okay. Next question here submitted. This is a very short one. Many people have expressed concern that former Cobb GOP chairs have not been faithful in following the rules of the state Republican Party, the county Republican Party, etc. What will you do to ensure that the rules are faithfully followed?
One thing is just holding people responsible. The rules are set out for a reason. And the problem with the rules is you keep adding more because people keep breaking them. It's like gun laws. You don't add new gun laws, you enforce the ones you have. Like I said, I was on the Rules Committee for the state party. I've been on the Rules Committee for the Cobb GOP. In fact, I wrote most of the rules that are currently in existence for the Cobb GOP when I completely reorganized them several years ago. So the rules need to be followed. What's more, when we break the rules, there's a state law that says members are entitled to a membership list. State law says that. When Rose Wing doesn't give out a membership list, she is breaking state law. State law says a delegate list can be handed out. When she doesn't hand that out, they are breaking state law. We need to stop breaking the law, folks. We're the Republican Party. We're the party of the rule of law, and we need to start doing it in our own house.
Okay, so this one's directed toward Jason. This is more concerning some of your history. There was a piece on the internet that recently appeared about a relationship you had with a young lady several years ago, where apparently there was a motion for you to not come near her. You addressed that accusation that was made on the internet.
We're talking about something that happened 17 years ago. And I've never been ashamed of it. In fact, I've talked to other people about it. The Democrats decided to use it and spend $120,000 in direct mail against me on it. I broke up with my fiance. She filed charges against me. The charges were later dropped. I got my criminal record in that bag. You know what it says? It's a letter from the sheriff saying you don't have a criminal record. Anyone here can see it if they want to. That should answer the question. Move on. Talk about the things that matter.
Next question from the audience.
Jason, you were talking about the Joe Dendy thing, and it seemed like because of the time you were cut off, would you continue?
And I won't need 3 minutes to finish it.
Part B.
So, basically what happened was the debate was cut off, and everyone voted because there was no debate on whether we should continue or not. Once again, in direct violation of the rules, I was calling on the chairman to actually read the rules so everyone on the Cobb County Committee could see that this was a wrong motion and we should be debating a motion postponed. If we debated, that was fine. If we debated and we voted to say, listen, let's wait till the trial's over, that's fine. But when you break the rules to shut down debate and shut someone down, that is not fine. So Joe Dendy's still immediate past chair. The same guy that watched my 4- and 5-year-old at the fish fry. And what am I supposed to say to other parents? What am I supposed to say to other parents? elections.
All right, another question from the audience? Back in the back.
Good evening. Appreciate you showing up. My name is Ron Mitchell, I live in Cobb County, Black, and we talked a little bit at the County State Watch. My question is this: for those of us who have been disillusioned by the Republican Party, and may relate to some of the things you talked about earlier, because our elected representatives don't bother to actually do that. What's the question? My question really is, and what are we going to do to illustrate what the basic tenets of the Republican Party are, and how we actually are going to represent you as our elected?
Thank you for your question. Can you answer that in a minute?
One thing is make sure those principles are up on our website. People need to know what the principles are. I remember when we in the Cobb GOP had little cards that had those principles on them. If you forgot one, you had a cheat sheet right there. But the big thing to do is to make sure that we grow the party. It's hard for people to do things in the dark when there's a lot of people shining a light on it. When the party keeps shrinking and shrinking, I've said that, you know, a lot of these folks wouldn't mind meeting in the phone booth as long as the right people were in there. And that's when you get into a problem where we don't live up to principles, because there's no one to say we shouldn't be doing this.
Okay, another question submitted here. Some folks are saying that the Republican Party of Georgia should be controlled by the governor's office. Is it your opinion that the governor's office should control the Republican Party, or do you believe this is the responsibility of the grassroots? Would you please explain that?
I came up through the grassroots. I started off in fall of 1994 because I was mad at Bill Clinton. I was a freshman at the University of Georgia. So I saw an advertisement in the red and black that said, College Republican Meeting, Tate Center, 8 o'clock, and I went. And I volunteered for Charlie Norwood's first campaign for Congress. We knocked off Democrat Don Johnson, who, after Bill Clinton's big tax hike, was caught on footage hugging Cynthia McKinney. Campaign. Positions I've always had in the party I've considered positions of honor. People have honored me with their trust, and I'm asking you to honor me again with your trust. But that's the grassroots. We don't do this to make money. We're not part of a professional class. We're the grassroots activists of the Republican Party, and it should stay in the hands of grassroots activists. We've had great chairmen like Sue Everhart, who came up through the grassroots as well. You don't need to be a professional. And by the way, the governor didn't support her at the beginning, but eventually came around to realize that was a mistake.
And he's a Democrat.
Okay, another question from the audience.
Hi, when we meet on March 11th and we elect the new Cobb County chairman, do we know now if it's going to be by secret ballot, show of hands, what form the voting is going to take?
Good question.
The power to do that lies in this crowd. The standard under Robert's Rules of Order is a voice vote. That's the standard. So all that needs to happen is someone makes a motion that we do it by secret ballot. It's second. The majority of people vote and say secret ballot, and they have to do it by secret ballot. Now, what they may do is they may put in the rules saying no secret ballot. What do you do then? You vote down the rule. Rules that amend Robert's Rules of Order require a 2/3 vote, not a majority, 2/3. So to kill secret ballot requires 2/3 vote. If the chairman says it's only majority, we'll have Robert's Rules there. If the chairman still says it's only majority, then we know we have a runaway convention.
All right, another submitted question. I have been a precinct officer in Cobb now for several years since Joe Dendy was chair. I was told that I would be getting marching orders during elections from the chair and getting the vote out for different elections. I have never heard any instructions from either Rose Wing or Joe Dendy at any point in time that I've served as a precinct officer. If you are elected, how would you change that?
Do your job.
Well, unfortunately for everyone, they're going to get marching orders. Sorry, folks, if you don't want to work, you want to sit around and watch Cobb County go more and more blue, don't elect me. If you're ready to get out and work, you're ready to go door to door, and you're ready to make Cobb County red again, then it's time to elect new leadership.